Afternoon, everyone. Welcome everyone to the Zebulon Board of Commissioners Work Agenda, May 30th, 2024. First, we will need the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda?
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Motion passes. Meeting schedule. Manager Moore.
Mayor, we bring two decisions before the board for consideration. They both involve adjustment to their meeting schedule. One is to make an adjustment to all their work session start times to begin at 6 p.m. The other is to recognize that the board will have a bond public hearing on June 13th. They already have a meeting scheduled for June 10th, which is a joint public hearing, also a June 11th work session. So the second consideration to the meeting schedule is to move the June 11th meeting, work session meeting, to June 13th, so it can coincide with your public hearing on the bond, and therefore you don't have to meet 3 times in 1 week.
Do we have that in our packet that I'm not seeing?
It's in the agenda.
Okay.
I have a problem with the 13th.
I do too. I think we have the, I'm looking at the calendar, that's East Wake High School's graduation. I was just saying, we have a conflict with East Wake High School. Their graduation is on that same day at 4 p.m.
I know this will be cumbersome, but if you all can give us an idea of when that will meet so we can schedule the public hearing.
This is the public hearing for the bond?
Correct.
Okay.
Can we move it to the following week?
That's
The 20th won't work for me.
I mean, I can do the day before. Can you guys do the 12th?
it cannot be any sooner than the 13th.
Oh, okay. All right, then.
17th, 18th?
I can do the 18th.
I'm going to do 18th.
Can you do the 18th?
I can do the 18th.
Okay, so
I'm good for 18th.
18th?
I think we're good with the 18th.
So if someone could incorporate that into a motion.
Yep, I move to conduct the bond public hearing for the, for discussion to take place on June 18th at 6 p.m.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Questions? Comments? All in favor? Motion passed.
Also included in there to the meeting schedule is we would need a motion from the board to change their work sessions to a start time at 6 p.m.
I move to start all work sessions at 6 p.m.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Discussion? All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you. We have some information from your last work session regarding the FY25 budget. There was a question about a parade, about the ability to take the chamber's place, and we've got some information. But before we got into that, I just wanted to check in with you all to see if you had any other questions on the budget that we might be able to answer or be prepared to come back and answer at the public hearing next Monday.
Well, I've got quite a few things that I'd like to talk about this evening, so I think that probably we should just talk about the parade first, since that's something that you've got information for us for.
Is that consensus of the board?
The consensus?
Correct. You're here. I'll
Okay.
do that.
Proceed.
All right, thank you. Understand that I've got all of 30 minutes lead time on this information I'm sharing with you. So I've scheduled a meeting next week with John Saffold to get a better understanding of the amount of staff time and volunteer hours that they put into the parade. Granted, I'm looking at this relatively cold. This looks like a lot of time. My first reaction to this is if you all were interested in taking over the administration of the parade, I would ask you to consider scaling back other events. This kind of volunteer hours, I can easily see this being replaced by Candy Cane Lane. I could possibly see this, given how much advanced planning time is required in parades, that this might actually have an impact on your Rock the Block. But again, that's me seeing this 30 minutes ago. I've scheduled some time with John. I'll do the best to answer questions that you may have.
So it looks like what you're saying is for the town to take this on, it will probably be somewhere in the ballpark of $22,000?
I mean, that 22,000, so that's other expenses, that's material, insurance. I've got some more detailed questions. I'd like to know if our insurance company would even pick that up. The staff and volunteer total value, 18,000. I don't know how that compares with the staff that we would assign to this. I'm actually less worried about the money. I'm more worried about the time. This time of year, we are involved in a lot of events. Candy Cane Lane is an example. I'm more worried about finding staff availability to fill in these hours.
So from what it looks like, there was one staff person, 5 steering committee volunteers, and then some additional volunteers, and the volunteer hours were broken up into 160 staff hours. I'm assuming that's the one person doing 160 hours worth of work?
That would be my assumption, but it's an assumption. I haven't had a chance to follow up with him.
Okay. Time was only tracked weeks immediately prior to the event.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry, I was just reading.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Apologies. So what I have heard from a lot of folks in the community is that they would really like to see the parade take place. What I'm hearing from staff is that it's going to take quite an investment of time. So I think that I would prefer for right now for us to allocate funds and then put it out to the community to secure the volunteers that we're going to need to move this forward, so that we're saying, yeah, we're going to put in good faith effort into making this happen. I mean, we've done this in the past. It's not like it's going to be us experiencing it for the first time, and we're also not going to be reinventing the wheel. I know that, it might need to be scaled back, and I think that from what I've heard from a lot of folks in the community, that's fine. They don't need the large number of folks that come in from other communities to participate. I think a lot of people want folks from our town, kids from our town, to be in the parade and to have the parade for them. So, thoughts from you guys?
I agree with you. I think we go ahead and allocate the funds for it. And then definitely it's going to take a lot of help from the community. We express that. The volunteer aspect of things, I think we get it there. I agree.
And this is going to be something, because now that we are at the end of May, beginning of June, that we're going to either have to move fast and hard with, or we're going to have to not move at all. So we're going to have to try and pull this together rather quickly. And so we've got to have a sense of urgency if indeed this is something that we're moving forward with.
What does that look like? We talk about a sense of urgency and trying to especially get as many volunteers as possible. My assumption is, being that this is something that the citizens want and have expressed thoroughly that they want it, then I'm expecting that we are going to get quite a few people that will be willing to volunteer. So, but what does that look like to move with a sense of urgency to basically get this information out there?
Well, that means that not only are we going to have to get the information out there probably at the beginning of next week, end of next week at the very, very latest. But we're going to need to immediately start putting committees together and getting people involved with actually pulling everything into place. Like, we can't wait for a month and a half to start
Correct.
moving on this, because if that happens, then we might as well not do it, because it won't happen.
But I think where you're gonna have to give a directive, this is what you want. You're gonna have to give drop dead dates. I want this by this date, this by that date, so we can make it happen. If not, it's gonna fall to the wayside. So,
Yeah.
And you're hoping that volunteers will do most of that?
what they don't, we'll figure out staffing accordingly. I mean, just is something we put together before. It's nothing new to us. As we have a
We've never
template.
put together the Zebulon Parade.
We put together
You may have
Juneteenth parade.
volunteered and worked along with them, but that chamber, I mean, I was working at the chamber one time when we did this. There's a lot of work and there is a lot of responsibility. And I like the parade, but I don't think it's something that the town needs to take on. I think you need to go to the citizens and say, are there any communities that want to help, any Lions Club, Rotary Club, anybody like that. But
So we're on the
that-
same page then, right? Like, we need to go out into the community to try and garner some support.
But
but
I don't think it ought to all fall, especially on our staff. We don't have the staff to do all
I
that.
thought that's not what maybe I'm misunderstanding. I didn't think we were saying was falling on the staff. I thought that's why we were discussing volunteers to get
Now-
community outreach.
And when you have volunteers, do they have to be screened or anything, or do you just, anybody that volunteers gets to do it?
Volunteers require staffing, and to get to one of the questions about sense of urgency is also going to fall on the board about canceling Candy Cane Lane, possibly cutting short Rock the Block. In order to free up staffing to oversee these volunteers and start to get after it, we need to free them of responsibilities such as Candy Cane Lane and Rock the Block.
For me, what I'm saying is this. Line item, $25,000, and we move forward with staff, knowing that we're going to solicit your Rotary Club, your American Legion, your any other organization here, understand that we're going to need their help to pull it off.
Since this will be our first involvement in trying to promote a parade, we really don't have any guidelines or ordinances or policies as to the type of parade, how many vendors or how many floats or participants, who can participate. One of the reasons some of the towns have gotten out of this is because there have been organizations that want to be in a parade that are very controversial and may not be something that the town would want to promote. So those are just some thoughts on moving forward with this. It's been the chamber's responsibility to allow who comes in and who's not to come in. Now we're taking that responsibility on. So we're going to need something to say how many, how big, the size, and what type of organizations do we want to be involved in this parade?
With that said, I think we're at a point now or never. What it is, somewhere we got to take the time frame to set the template for what's to come. Every citizen I've talked to and see social media posts, they're all saying they want a Christmas parade. That's not a hidden fact.
Yeah.
So we figure out what we need to do to get it, make it happen. To understand what other municipalities do, what they're doing, I respect that. But we're going to, as Zebulon, we can set our own pace and set the tip of what we want to become.
I have no problems with trying to pull this off. I'm just bringing up thoughts for consideration so the town won't be, I guess, in any kind of jeopardy.
Yes, sir.
As far as participants in the parade.
Yes, sir.
All right, so for tonight and figuring out how this fits into the budget, I think that we should set aside a dollar amount with the good faith thought that we are going to move forward. Then we're going to need to talk through some of these concerns and topics that the mayor brought up. And so I think that adding the parade to our June board agenda is probably the prudent thing to do, and that will give us at least a few days to send out this information into the public to see if we can get back an adequate number of volunteers, and then we can circle up with maybe a couple of the other communities that are still holding parades in the area to just I mean, everybody that's doing it has a framework that they work from every single year. And I feel like we have some pretty awesome towns surrounding us, and that they would probably be willing to share that information with us so that we can have an idea on June 3rd how we want to proceed. Does that work for everyone?
We can't pull that off.
I'm sorry?
We can't pull that off.
Can't
Now,
pull what portion of it off?
We can't just throw out to the wind, is anyone interested in volunteering, without having staff dedicated to it. What I would recommend, and this is what I plan to do anyway, with the budget public hearing, I will take the items that you have wanted to add, and I will incorporate that into the budget, and I'll have more information from you. So that includes the bathrooms at Gill Street, that includes the splash pad, and I can put in the parade. But we don't have staff available right now just to do a mass mailing. Volunteers don't organize themselves. They need staff to oversee them.
Joe, what does that look like in other terms, like the Juneteenth committee? How did you guys bring together those volunteers?
We have staff overseeing them. We have staff involved. So
How do they recruit? I guess I'm saying, how do they advertise to recruit to bring those volunteers in?
I mean, we can talk about the mechanics of how we did that. What I'm talking about is capacity. I'm talking about workload. We are short-staffed. They are already stretched thin. It's not necessarily a question about how we do it. I think we can figure out a way of how to do it. What I don't want to do is assign extra workload to staff that doesn't exist without having an understanding that we're peeling back something else. And again, Candy Cane Lane is an example. Rock the Block is another example. There might be a way we can incorporate an element into Candy Cane Lane, but I'd like the opportunity to talk about staff. But what I don't want to do is communicate and just do a broad broadcast. We're looking for volunteers when we don't even have staff to oversee that or a plan of what it looks like.
So if that's the case, we might just Candy Cane Lane, Mox Nick's Candy Cane Lane, focus on the Christmas parade. If that's the case, then
Take Candy Cane Lane out?
Yeah, take Candy Cane Lane out and prioritize the parade.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a possibility we could do.
Mike,
That was from the chamber.
Yeah, I was saying, what was the other event we did? I can't think of it right now. It's called after Candy Cane Lane.
Oh, I don't know, the reverse parade thing?
Yeah.
That thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember what the name of it was.
I remember it was like back to back, so I'm like,
Well, and that did take some staff hours. I think the chamber helped with that initiative. So let's put this on the June 3rd agenda, and let's have this as part of our budget public hearing. And That'll give us a few days to kick it around and for us to think about if we're going to scale back, where we're going to scale back. Is it going to be Rock the Block? Is it going to be Candy Cane Lane? I mean, Candy Cane Lane seems to be well received,
Oh, yeah, that one's
but you know, like,
The other one.
I would not sacrifice Candy Cane Lane for a parade. I think that reaches more children and more families, and they, come down for the tree lighting and everything.
so are we in agreement that we're going to bring this back on June 3rd as part of the budget public hearing? And can we assign a $25,000 temporary price tag to that, please?
And
Yeah.
your hopes for June 3rd, what are you hoping to gather with that? If just gather more information from outside input, or give staff time to bring more information to us? What are your hopes for that? By putting it on the 3rd, instead of just saying, okay, a line item, $25,000, we move forward, and we figure it out.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Add it to the budget
Okay.
for us for the budget public hearing.
Okay, joint public hearing meeting, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, for
Board meeting.
the budget public
That's okay.
hearing, yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
Is that the consensus?
Need a
So
motion?
we're saying,
No, we don't need a,
you said you're just going to include that with the budget?
I'll bring back information for the board to consider. I've gotten enough feedback where I
Okay.
can bring you back something.
So the 25K will be a line item, is that correct?
I don't know if it will be
Let's do
25K.
it.
It might be more. Again, I'm less worried about the money and more concerned about the staff availability. But we'll bring all of that information back to you and incorporate it into the public hearing.
okay, great.
Next item, FY '25 budget. I think you had some questions.
Yeah, sure, if you're willing to let me drive the train for a couple minutes, absolutely. So, let's see. First, I'd like to understand for the personnel market adjustments. From what I'm understanding from the budget statement is that you would like, that the manager would like to give a 3% raise across the board to everyone except for hard to recruit positions, which will receive a 5% bump in salary.
That's correct.
Okay, and so this is going to be in replacement of a COLA or in addition to a COLA?
There is no COLA. We have, for many years, performance pay, and that will still stay in effect. This is a market adjustment, 3% across the board minimum, with the exception of those, as you said, hard to recruit positions where it would be a 5% increase.
Okay, and what would the hard to recruit positions be? I'm assuming police and fire?
Primarily police, and also including some positions in planning.
All right, can I please have a list of those positions?
Yes, but not right now.
Okay, so you'll bring that back to us on June 3rd?
I will.
Okay. And then then in addition, you want to also give merit increases? And what's your cap on merit increases?
The merit pool increases up to 5%, depending upon performance.
Did you say wellness? Did you say wellness?
No, I did not. Performance merit pay is available up to 5% dependent upon performance.
That's based upon an evaluation.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I was just asking, is that based upon an evaluation done by, I'm assuming, the directors of each department?
That's what I was about to ask, department heads, I think.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
It's whoever the immediate supervisor is.
Can you tell me what page that's on in the budget statement?
The 3% and the 5%?
No, the merit pay increase. Or is that somewhere within each department's?
It's included within each of the salary line items per department. I don't believe, because we've been doing it for at least 5, maybe 7 years, called it out in the budget message specifically.
Well, I'm just trying to understand because of the salary adjustment. I want to make sure that it's clear what increases we're talking about here. I don't necessarily need you to put it into the budget message, but I need to understand where it's located in these line items.
It's located, all of the adjustments we're talking about, the 3% market or the 5% market, and the 5% merit is all included within the salary line items of every department.
Okay, so, and what's the total monetary pool for the merit pay? I'm assuming that there is a cap within each department, or how is that going to be allocated? We've talked about this before, but I just want to make sure that I have an understanding of how that's going to be doled out.
We budget with the expectation of everyone has the potential to get 5%. So we budget conservatively as if everyone can perform to that level.
And in the past, how many times has it happened that every single person has gotten a 5% or the top percentage of the merit pay?
I mean, we would have to research that, but I don't recall that ever happening.
Not since I've been here has that happened when I've been overseeing
Okay.
the evaluation process.
Can I ask a question for clarification? Joe, with you saying if you guys budget for that, for as if every employee was to get the 5%, and then when they don't, what happens with those funds? How does that work? Can you educate me on that?
Sure. So that's one of those situations where the unspent money rolls into your general fund balance.
Thank you.
And when will that rollback happen?
That occurs at the start of the fiscal year. So that rollover occurs July 1st, 2024.
This year, do we have any this year, or that we did a budget adjustment on? Did we do any budget adjustment for those funds, or did we not budget for them last year? I can't recall.
No, we always budget for performance pay, for merit pay. So that's already been budgeted. I don't know if that was your question or not.
Right, I'm saying we have funds now currently sitting that we allocated last year, still out, the potential will roll back into the general fund?
So as an example, if someone is not a top performer, the amount of money that we budgeted that will not get used because they did not get a top rating on their performance, that will be considered lapsed salary. And so that money rolls into general fund balance.
Are there any more questions about this? Okay. So I'd like to talk about the additional requested positions or recommended positions. I think that there are some things going on that need to be adjusted here. I would like to add an additional police officer to the police salary line item, and I think that by taking out the bridge to Terabithia, or the bridge to nowhere but Barbie Street, we can pay for that at least for this year, and then move forward with appropriately funding that on a continuous basis in the next fiscal year. Are there any thoughts about that?
Commissioner, are you asking for an additional off of the 2 that is already?
I'm
to make
talking
it
an
3?
additional one.
Okay.
Yeah, an additional police officer, and then we can just take the $90,000 from that bridge repair project and put it into the police budget.
So I'm going to offer some context for the board to consider. Police officer would be an operating expense, which means it's an annual expense. The bridge is a capital expense, which is a one-time expense.
Correct.
So if you're looking to offset positions, you should really look for something that is in the operating budget, not the capital budget.
Well, we can do that. For example, I think that that the governing board doesn't need an administrative assistant, so we can certainly take that out. And then there is, once the clerk is hired, there will be not the same amount of pressure on HR that is currently acting as clerk. And so as far as adding additional personnel to HR, once that clerk is taken care of, we won't need the administrative assistant and that other position. Thoughts?
So basic total cost for 1 year, that first year of another officer is what, Joe? The guesstimation, chief?
Yep, you can ask Chief. She knows better than I do. I'd have to dig for it.
So the cost for bringing on an additional officer is not just the salary. We do have to consider some other ancillary expenses between salary, benefits, a car, their uniform, all the equipment. It is about $180,000.
Okay. And so car and equipment would be considered capital expenses, and so we could just shift the money from the bridge for some of those. What would be the total for the capital expenses for the car and the kit?
So the uniforms are operating, it's just the car that is not, and that's 95.
That's
For the
nine-
vehicle and all of the upfitting that goes with the patrol vehicle.
So it's 95,000, you said?
Yes.
And the bridge is at 90.
Should we go with,
With,
I'm sorry, go
you're
ahead.
good, you're good.
You sure?
Positive.
So that would give us, we have 2 commanders and a detective and 3 police officers? Is that what we'd be looking at?
Hang on a second, let me get to the page.
So it's like, what page?
It's page 15, I think, is what
That's what I'm looking at.
Commissioner
That
Davis is
page.
referencing.
Page 15. so-
Yeah, sorry, and page 36, but the breakdown, yes, on page 15.
Yes.
So I see that the recommendation, 2 watch commanders, a detective, and I know the request was for 2 officers, so we add 3 officers, 2 watch commanders, and 1 detective. Is that what we're looking at? With adding the 3rd officer, are you looking at doing anything different with the watch commander or the detective?
No, those would remain the same.
Okay.
I'm not thinking that we need to remove or adjust either of those.
So this is an important distinction. If you're asking for 1 additional officer, then what's under the recommended budget? So right now recommended is 2 watch commanders, a detective, if the board is interested, and they can get into this discussion and decision at the public hearing, if they're looking to add one officer, that's going to be more than the admin assistant. If they're looking at adding 3 officers, then that's much more than the admin assistant. So they would have to look for cuts in other areas if they're looking for adding 3 officers.
I don't think that that's what we were discussing. You were just wondering if we were adding one additional or 3 additional?
One additional.
Yeah, okay, one
Total
additional.
of 3.
No.
One additional that you're asking.
But then there's a detective and 2 watch commanders.
Correct. So
it would
I
be
want to clarify exactly
it would
what
be
you're looking for.
4 total.
Positions.
4 positions.
Okay.
We currently still have officers that are, you have 2 positions, or do you currently have positions open as well, Chief?
I have 4 positions open. Is it?
So it'll be a total of 5 altogether by this fiscal year. You're looking at hiring 5 total if we add this one on. Is that what you're
No, I have 4 positions open
So
today.
there'll be 8.
I will have 3 additional on July 1st with this budget and 1 additional that you're talking about. So I'll be looking to hire 8 people in the coming weeks.
So, Chief, with what is in the budget currently, that is offering salaries that are actually going to attract officers to come to Zebulon, I'm assuming, or is it not?
I think it makes progress towards where we need to be.
All right, where do we need to be? Like, I'm tired of this progress stuff, and please don't take this as me trying to attack you, because I'm not. I just want to finally get it right, and I want people to be paid what they're worth, and I want that to be happening throughout the entire department of the departments that need it.
Before you speak, Chief, what we're dealing with now, you're dealing with, talking to different police departments, you're dealing with, everybody's jumping all over the scale. I'll give you an example. Selma moved their starting pay to $60,000. So everybody's chasing, somebody's trying to set the tempo. I don't know who's going to be that. I think what we're looking at a start pace of 52,000, I think, Chief, your goal was 52 or 55. Which one is it?
Yeah, so when I was originally looking at our market and where we are losing candidates to and where we are losing employees to, it's those agencies that are in the mid-50s. I feel like we have to get to 52 to make us attractive enough for candidates to come.
Is that where we're at now with what the starting salary range is?
For the recommended budget, it would be 49,502.
That's not acceptable for me right here. We need to be at least where we can attract the staff that we need for the police department. So if that means that we are not adding an additional person, but we are making sure that everyone is starting at the salary that they need and then adjusted down the line, that's where I'd like us to be.
Yeah, so if you don't mind me speaking to that. I've had 4 vacant positions for months. And for me to fill 4 is going to take several months. With the additional 3 that are currently in the budget, realistically, it will be after January before I have those folks in place. I would think that improving the salary will help expedite that process some, but there will be some savings because I won't be able to fill those positions immediately.
Right, you're talking about
There will be
recaptured salary because
Yes,
you're not
there
going
will
to
be
able to-
lapsed salary in this existing budget because I won't be able to fill those positions right away.
Well, you're certainly not going to be able to fill them if we're not offering them out to folks at a rate that's attractive. And I would rather us put that money there up front instead of having it go back into lapsed salary so that we can get those 4 positions that you are looking for filled and get those next 3 positions filled. And if it means that we're not adding an extra police officer, that's fine by me. I just want us to get to where we need to be. And if 52 is going to do it, then let's make that happen. If 55 is going to do it in a couple of months instead of by January, then I think that we need to do that and we need to make adjustments down the line. It's very important for you guys to have the support that you need and the staff to be able to appropriately take care of us as we're growing. And I know that you spent a lot of time putting together this budget, but I want us to be hiring at a rate that's going to be attractive. So when we come back on for the public hearing, can you please tell us what we need to do to be able to fill those positions with urgency?
If we do go to the 52.5, and I put this in a graph when I presented the budget, you are going to have police officers. It's going to have a ripple effect throughout the entire department.
And that's why I made the statement that we need to make sure that we're adjusting things along the way. So if that means that it's going to cost us $180,000 instead of hiring an officer and kitting out a car, but we're able to pay all of our officers appropriately, I would much rather do that. I don't want us losing more excellent officers because they have financial decisions to make for their families and we're not able to provide for them.
So what I was about to say is if you do go that route and you adjust everybody's salary up, you'll need to take a look at these other proposed positions on page 15 and see which ones you think are less important than raising everyone's existing salary. So just give that some thought before the public hearing is what I was trying to say.
Okay, sure.
Chief, with this said as well, that 52.5, I know we've spoken briefly about being able to diversify your police force. Will this attract that diversity that we're looking for? I know we had talked about that briefly before. Will that 52.5 put us in the ballpark of diversifying the police department as well?
I think we have diversified our applicant pool a lot in the past year and a half, 2 years. And we are seeing more minority and female applicants than we have, but we are still losing qualified minority and female applicants to other agencies. When I did my budget presentation back in February, I said that if you were interested in competing with those agencies that are doing really well in hiring minorities and women, it would take a 26% salary increase across the board to make us competitive with those agencies.
So that number would look like what? Is that something you can bring back to us as well, what that number would look like?
Are you talking about like a grand total number or per person, or what that starting salary would look like?
If you could provide both, that'd be greatly appreciated, Chief.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments for the chief?
Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're not talking about adding another position at this point.
No, at this point, what I guess I hadn't realized is that we weren't offering competitive salaries yet and that we hadn't addressed compression fully. And for us to be growing we need to take that into consideration, and we need to make sure that we've got the support staff that we need to make sure that our town is safe, and to make sure that other staff members are safe.
So I guess, do you have what you need?
Yeah, Mayor, so what we'll do is at the budget public hearing, we'll include all these additions for the board to consider. The options before the board are going to be rather simple, although not simple to execute, but it's either going to involve raising the tax rate or cutting positions that have been proposed. But we can bring what the budget cost is to make all these adjustments. It will be a decision before the board on whether they want to raise taxes or cut or scale back on some of these positions that have been recommended, and to understand what the ramifications on scaling back what these positions means.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with that for 100%.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry, I was,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Any other questions, comments?
okay, can
Yeah,
we
Mar-
look at page 26 now, please? Down at the very bottom, the last line item, it says fund balance appropriation, and that is projected to be just under $2.8 million for FY25. What is that going to bring our fund balance percentage to if we appropriate those funds?
That would take it to about 40%.
So with the 2.8 going into this budget, it will leave us with 40%.
Correct.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, let me just elaborate. At 2.7, that does not include what the board was considering for the splash pad or the bathroom. So those additional projects that the board moves forward, fully funding those, that will bring that number, that will make that number even greater and bring the percentage down.
And what is our policy again? 30? Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. And this might be another question for you, Bobby. On page 30, under revenues, there is, it's up at the top, and it just says miscellaneous revenues. And like in FY23, that was $4,600, but it's projected that we're going to get, that's like 10 grand. Is there more context to that? It's at the top of page 30.
That varies. We've always budgeted 10. Sometimes it's 20. Sometimes it's 4. That's just a catch-all for instance, like the fees we get from Raleigh for taking payments is something that goes in there, and just miscellaneous like donations, things like that get thrown into that line right there.
Okay, so any item that doesn't have another line item is of course what miscellaneous means, but you're saying that there's fees from Raleigh and...
That's just an example.
Okay.
When we take a water bill payment, we get a quarter for each payment that we take. And when we get a check every month from them, it goes into that. That's an example. There's other things like like donations. It's usually a lot of small little pieces.
Okay. All right, thank you. And when one of the one of the things that we're budgeting for, and I'm assuming that it all is in relationship to the same projects. When it says that we've got bond proceeds, that's for the upcoming bond that we're hoping to run and what we anticipate that we would need from that bond if it passes, but we're not going to be using it and nothing's going to be done with it, of course, because we won't have it if the bond
Doesn't pass.
fails, but we won't be pursuing those projects that the bond would be covering.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. On page 32, could I get some elaboration, and I'm not sure if this is you, Bobby, or if this is Manager Moore, into the strategic planning retreats, what that's going to entail and how often and what those, could you just kind of give us some context?
I'll take that.
Yep.
So we have been operating with the board of offering mini retreats. There's been scheduling conflicts with that. I think that has cheated you all from really having some more robust conversations. And so what we had planned was to budget some time for you all to get away. I don't know the location, but where you can actually have a more traditional retreat, and you can do things like strategic planning, strategic budgeting, things that are more free-flowing and less formal than what your work sessions are right now.
Okay, so this would be more in line with what we did at, in Rocky Mount
That's
in 2019?
That's a good example, yes.
2020? Okay. We had a retreat out of town, was what it was. Okay, all right. On page 33, is the position, Bobby, that you are asking about, that's going to be almost $100,000 position? Is that what that means?
No.
Okay, could you help me with the $100,000 there? That's with raises and everything?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was about I think 72 or so is what it was budgeted for.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely not 100.
And then the remaining would be like the merit increases?
Right.
Okay, all right.
What are you looking at?
I'm so sorry. Page 33, the first line item, salaries, there was a large jump between the amended budget and the requested and recommended budget between 2024 and 2025, and I just wanted to have an understanding of what that was, how that was broken out, since everything is lumped together, the merit increases, the salary adjustments, as well as finances asking for an additional position. So I wanted to understand how that was broken out.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The admin, no. Yes, the admin, I'm sorry, on page 32, the admin assistant, that's the part-time salary of $31,000? Or is that something different?
Did you say 32?
Page 32.
All right.
It's 410, the governing body, there's not only $122,000 for salary, which I assume is taking into account the clerk, but also then there's additional part-time salaries.
Time salaries is that admin assistant.
That's the admin assistant? Okay. And where are our contracted services with Wyrick Robbins falling?
Included under professional services. Is that correct, Bobby? Is that where you put it?
So that's the
It's doing-
380,000?
Correct, yeah, that's right.
Do we have exact total on that, Bobby? Or is it complete 380 or?
There's other things in there, audit fee, American legal things. I think the legal portion was, do you remember, Eric, what it was? Right offhand?
I think it was about 275, 280.
Yeah, I would say
For what? I'm sorry.
just the Wyrick part.
Okay. And you said the rest of the other $100,000 fell where?
The audit fee is in there. There's some other things like some agenda software I think goes in there. Some American legal.
What's American legal?
The ordinance, the code update.
Oh, okay.
Is that what it's? Yes. The
American Legal is our code of ordinances and our UDO, all of that goes under that line item.
And they're just the warehouser, right?
They are a company that does all of our printing.
Yeah.
But they also have attorneys on staff that will review our code to make sure that it is in alignment with state law so that we're not violating anything. And if we have any conflicts, they will point it out to us. And then, that helps us to make sure that we make some adjustments as we need to on this side. Luckily, I think that's only happened once, which has been a very long time ago, when we found that we were not in alignment with state law.
Okay. And so, okay, thank you.
Are we contractually obligated with those? Do we have a contract with American Legal? Or is
We
this-
have been with them for a really long time. They are the preferred vendor for the League of Municipalities. So we get a better rate going through them. There are other companies that will do the codification, but they don't have the legal team that reviews the ordinances to make sure that they are not in violation of state law.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then we pay for elections supposedly every other year. But are we paying for them again in this fiscal year because we're running the bond?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, you have to pay.
Correct.
Yeah.
You have to pay in advance, but I talked to Wake County Board of Elections today.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure since normally that's every other year. Okay.
With that said, Bobby, is there a cost if we wanted to be like a early election?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
With that said, Bobby, is there a cost associated with if we wanted to be a early polling site here in Zebulon?
There is very much. I think it's very expensive. I think Lisa checked into that. It was a lot.
I'm normally the contact for that, but it's was well over $100,000.
Yeah, I think the last one was
For us to do it.
150,000
It was crazy.
to do early voting in your municipalities.
And the problem is that whatever is decided by like any municipality, the early voting sites have to follow the same schedule. So what happens is places like Cary and Apex, they want the whole 17 days. So if they want to do 70 days and they're willing to pay for 17 days, that means we have to do the exact same number of days and be open the exact same number of hours. And so that makes it prohibitive for us based upon the cost.
The good thing is that right down on Pool Road, like, we have early voting opportunities that aren't that far away, and I don't know the answer to this, but will Smart Ride be able to provide transportation to one of the early voting sites? I don't think so, because Nightdale doesn't do it, right?
Closest one is like Garner. I think Garner has the closest early voting site besides at the Wake County Board of Elections. I think Garner is the closest one because I know taking people like my parents to early voting, we had to go way out there.
This year, that would be correct, because
sure.
it was, like this May, like when we just voted, there were no early voting sites close at all. I agree with you. I want to say that Nightdale has done early voting in the past, but they did not do it last year because the cost jumped so much.
So
Is it possible
prohibitive.
we share that cost with another municipality? Is that something we could discuss as well? Sharing that cost?
Oh, like,
We pay
like
portion.
Wendell does it, but we pay a portion and Nightdale
Or
pays
we
a
do it and
portion?
Wendell pay us portion or something like that. I did talk to Wake County Board of Elections today. That is something that can be done. So just it's something I would love to take a look at it.
For this budget?
No, the next
Oh,
budget.
Okay, all right.
2025.
So let's make a note to put that into consideration for FY '26. Thank you for tracking that down. That's interesting information.
I don't know why I thought Wendell did it last year.
No, sir, they did not. The closest one is, like I said, basically Garner. Like, it's because a lot of citizens that didn't go vote because they couldn't make it on that day, but they were like, people were transporting back and forth. That was all.
Mayor, may I ask for a 5-minute recess before we continue on, please?
5-minute recess.
Thank you.
Naveen? Questions, comments? Board?
Okay, I'm ready to continue my march to the sea. So on page 34, this is the administration budget, which has clerk, HR, IT, and it says PIO, but I'm assuming that this is the communications manager.
It is.
We've got a jump of $35,000 under the professional services line. Could we get some more information on that? Is that IT, or do we have something else hitting that line?
I'm sorry, which line item?
It is under professional services, like in 2023, it was 28 grand. Last year, it was 95, and this year, the recommended is 130.
I would have to look it up. I'm sorry, I'm missing that page in my budget. So I'd have to look at the explanation page that I have in my office where I've broken it
Okay.
down, so.
Okay, so if you could get that for us for June 3rd.
I can.
Okay. And then on the same page, there are 2 travel and trainings. HR training is at 29,000, which is the same as it was last year. And then there's the 16,300 under just travel and training. Is that 16,300, is that supposed to be for the clerk?
No, all the clerk items are under the board, the governing board. The
So-
clerk is not under administration in this
Okay.
budget.
Okay.
So in this
So it
budget,
just needs to be taken off, because up at the top it says clerk, which is why I
would
was
have to look and
confused
see
by
that.
that.
So I would, yes, clerk is not included or should not be included in this budget. It should have been in administration. So I would have to sit down with Bobby and make sure that that is what happened.
This says administration, it's just 420 or 430 instead of 410. So it's not governing board admin.
Right, but the clerk should be under 410,
410?
not
Okay.
430. So let me talk with Bobby, and I can get more information for you and hopefully understand a little bit better.
Okay, okay. So you'll come back with those 2 training items and then just the clarification as far as the clerk stuff goes.
Correct, and
Okay,
I can
cool.
tell you what's under both of those sections. Both of those
Right
lines.
now?
No, but that's
Oh,
next,
oh, yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
Monday.
yeah.
Yes, on Monday.
Okay, okay. So,
Commissioner Baxter's looking for our next thing. Can you break down the safety committee, that $11,000 for me, please?
I will have to look at that as well. I don't have the breakdown of what's in everything. I know under safety, it's got he goes to a conference. It has got the software that we use for accidents and tracking of those items and workers' comp things. And I know those 2 items for sure. What else is in there, I can't think of right off the top of my head.
Is that something you can bring back to us on June 3rd, please?
Yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, excuse me.
Thank you. No, you're fine. Thank you.
and as far as the computers line item, is that just because we didn't replace the computers last year, or are we doing another $75,000 worth of computer replacement for just this department?
What we do, it's not just for this department. It is under 430 because IT is under 430.
Okay.
And so every year, we are replacing computers. It also has money in that line item for new positions.
Okay.
And one of the things that we're doing is we're getting all the police department tough books as we're bringing on new people and replacing, which are much more expensive.
Okay,
That one I can answer.
all right. As far as our contracted services for our website administrator, we had some real issues when we tried to upgrade the website earlier this year. And I think there was, I'm assuming maybe some pushback from that company as far as making sure that we got all of the departments in that we needed and that the issues were taken care of. So is this something that we might need to look at a different contractor for, or do we feel like we have the website situation completely ironed out so that we can move forward and have it operate smoothly?
That's a Caleb question, since he's handling the website now.
So we ran into some hiccups with the website when we made the initial transition. Those should all be ironed out and smoothed out. We've had good response with the person assigned to our website as far as addressing any immediate issues that we've had going forward. So I'm comfortable with the contracted service that we currently have.
I'm sorry, say that last part. You're comfortable with the services RAF
That we currently have.
that we currently have? Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you. We've been doing an increased wellness program now for a couple of years, and at some point I would like to put out an employee survey that kind of assesses how the wellness program is being received and how it is being utilized. I know that we talked about this quite a few months ago as far as how we're going to gauge the success of the program and how we're going to identify areas in which it needs to be tweaked. So I'm not sure if that, well, actually I am sure. I'm sure that it's something that can be hammered together and sent out anonymously for employees to fill out, just as far as like what they'd like to see moving forward. Because part of that, it's more than just the fruit baskets and things like that. That's also part of the what we have contracted with the insurance company as well. Yeah? Or is that something, or is it, am I remembering this differently than what it is?
I'm not quite sure your question.
Well, the total scope of the wellness program, that included things for hitting certain goals for the employees, right?
Yeah, that's, we have contracted with a company that they have a portal now, it's online, so that we can run all of our stuff through that. So they are tracking the whole process. So if you do X amount of things, yes, you're going to get rewarded for, you know, what you're doing. And it's all handled through them because they have access to like various gift cards. So if people wanted to buy running shoes or things along those lines, they would have that opportunity to do so. And it makes it all in one place. So if you go to the doctor or the dentist, you participate, like we had a walking challenge, and we had decent participation, but we had one person who did like 8 marathons in this walking participation in a month. So, you know, it is able to see what's happening when we're having challenges, and it also puts forth a place where they can register for things. We're still using, working with Wake Med to bring in like the mammogram bus, or to bring in physicals and biometric screenings and things like that. So, you know, we worked with our insurance company, or not our insurance, but our agent, to put us in contact with this person and this company that does this.
And that's
for other
where the
municipalities.
$50,000 is going, is towards that company?
You mean the grant that we got?
On 34, under the wellness program, you know, like in 2023, it was, you know, like we were just funding it at like $5,000, and now we're at 50 grand. So that's
part of that is a wellness grant that we got from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So they gave us a $40,000 grant, and so we've rolled it over each year what we haven't used, and we've done fairly well. And we are funding the additional 10,000 is paying for some of the other things that we're doing in this program. And we're trying to expand our program. Like this year, we're going to, this upcoming year, in September, we're going to do a wellness fair where we're going to be bringing various vendors in and food and things like that. And safety and wellness are working together to head that up and to bring that forward for the employees. So it allows us to do more. And so part of that wellness money will be spent on this company that's helping us with this process.
Okay. And then the rest of it is the things that we were just doing
The things
prior
that
to
yes,
that?
ma'am.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you for that clarification.
Right, while we're there on that same page, 34, can you explain the 54,000 PEG meter we get from that? That's coming directly out of our budget, or is that something else, funds come from elsewhere? The 54,000, Joe, the very last line item for PEG Media Partnership?
So
Yeah, that's, so let me give a brief description. So the town of Zebulon receives $54,000 for having a TV channel that PEG Media posts for us, and that's just a pass-through. So we receive $54,000 from the state of North Carolina, and we pass that along to PEG Media to run our programming. Just as Knightdale and Rollsville and Wendell and Archer Lodge and Clayton and Garner do.
So it's basically, it's not coming out of our general fund, it's basically money that comes from North Carolina brought to us, and we just sign it right over to PEG Media?
That's exactly right.
So is that control, when I see them at like events with the chamber and different things like that, that's our 50, I mean, from that 54,000, or does the chamber pay them extra in other places?
I don't know that answer. I don't know if the chamber is paying them directly or not. I would be surprised, though.
So basically, we're paying for the coverage with the chamber and other organizations when they go out to like the different events.
That's an assumption.
Is that, we have a contract with those guys as well?
We have a contract with PEG Media. We are one of 7 communities that have an agreement with PEG Media.
Is it mandated that that money go directly to PEG Media? Is that someone in that contract that we have to give that money to PEG Media, or can we look elsewhere as well?
If we looked elsewhere, we would have to, so I'll give some examples. The town of Cary, as an example, has their own TV production program. So they receive these funds from the state, and they do their own TV programming. For communities like us in Wendell, the agreement that we have right now is that we'll receive it and pass it on. So we could investigate what it would take to break from that contract, but those are the 2 options. If you're interested in getting state funds for video programming, you either put it on yourself or you contract, in this case, through a vendor like PEG Media.
I would like to take a look at other options as well.
I don't have a problem with utilizing PEG Media, but you did bring up a good point. Like, I would like to have an understanding of the
works.
contract, like if it just, if they are contracting with the Chamber of Commerce as well, or if the money that they receive from the town of Zebulon means that they will just go to any Zebulon event. And then how would people reach out to PEG Media to make sure that their event is covered if that's how this is operating? Because I'm not sure, and it sounds like we need some clarification.
It's my understanding that the chamber pays for their own.
Okay.
That's just my understanding, but I could,
Yeah.
because one of the reasons Coffee with the Mayor was reduced to a recorder was because of the cost with the chamber.
I think just clarification on how those funds are allocated and what we do as a municipality cover would be greatly appreciated.
We can bring the board back information on that.
Perfect, thank you.
It won't be June 3rd, though, if that's all right. It's not part of the budget conversation. This is a pretty detailed contract.
So if we put that 54,000 on hold, would that speed that conversation up?
Well, no, because we're contractually obligated to pass that money through.
I would like to see a copy of the contract, if we could do that. Is that something you could email
Well,
to?
we can definitely get you a copy of the contract, but getting into the details about what it takes to break or go in a different direction, that's going to be a much more complex, but we can definitely get you a copy of the contract.
That'd be greatly appreciated. If you could email, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other items?
On what I call 34 and a half, it's right before 35, but it's got the infographics on it, so it's not got line items. There are some requests, and then I'd just like to have an understanding of the cost to housing infrastructure program. For that.
Where is this?
It's under notable requests on, it's in between page 34 and 35.
This is the planning department's infographic.
I'm sorry?
Is this the planning department's infographic?
Yes.
All right, and you're looking at the back page of that, which is notable projects.
Yeah, it says notable projects.
Okay, and which one are you referring to?
Where it says the housing infrastructure program.
Requests. Okay, yeah, it's at the bottom of that page under notable requests, the housing infrastructure program. That is funded in the, yes, it is, the capital improvement plan under Community and Economic Development Fund. As far as the details of that, we really need Mike Clark here, and I don't believe he's here. So we'll have to get you back what is the details of that. But it's funded in the capital improvement plan under Community and Economic Development Fund.
And so not seeing him in attendance here, in addition, just under the salaries, there's one request, and that's the Transportation Planner 2. And but that's 172,000 up from last fiscal year. And so I'm assuming that means that there's some salary adjustments, or maybe I'm not understanding where all of that is going.
Okay, so I think you're referring to page 35, which is
I'm on 35 on the very top line item.
and you're comparing the salary.
The FY '24 amended budget to what the recommended budget is.
Okay, so that will, similar to a question, an answer that Bobby gave before, that will include the additional position. In this case, it's Transportation Planner 2, as well as those market adjustments, as well as those hard-to-hire adjustments, as well as the performance pay, which is the merit.
Okay, so there's a market adjustment which is the 3%.
Yeah, across the board market, but there are positions in there that have been difficult to hire. I want to say it was a planner 2, may have been a senior planner as well. So there are some what I've classified hard to hire positions that go above and beyond that 3% market.
So that's the 5%.
Correct.
So they're not getting 3% and then 5%, they're just going to get the 5%.
That's correct.
And then merit pay. So it's two things.
Correct.
Okay,
In
all right.
addition to the transportation planner position.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, yeah, it might be transportation planner, yeah, transportation planner 2.
Transportation planner 2, okay. And then for, also on 35, Deborah Ross's office made an announcement that they were able to secure funding for expanded bus connectivity in eastern Wake County, including Zebulon. And I'm not quite sure where that hits. Are they going to provide the additional bus services and potential extra bus routes, and that's going to be paid and administered through a program outside of the town of Zebulon?
I haven't heard about Representative Ross securing those funds. There are funds in your budget. It's in the capital expense actually for this first year to fund the program. Obviously, if we're able to get those funds transferred from Representative Ross's office as an earmark, we'll note that as a transfer. It'll be a budget transfer. But that's how, from an accounting perspective, that works.
So where is that located then in the CIP? Because maybe I missed it. Because I'm not talking about Smart Ride here.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I was talking about.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
She said that when we met, I think it was 800,000.
yeah, I thought that's what it was.
It's
It was $700,000 or $800,000.
$800,000 she was able to secure for Zebulon for something. That was one of the points when we met her in D.C. That was one of the talking points. She said 800,000 she secured for the town of Zebulon.
Well,
something like
I'm
that.
not
Or
sure
it
it
was
was for the
spread-
town of Zebulon. I
but
think
it's
it was
the eastern-
for
for
Eastern Wake
Eastern
County,
Wake
and it was
County.
going
There
to
we go.
expand
There we go.
bus service and connectivity. But I know that we have some associated bus service fees that we pay for, but I hadn't heard anything else or seen anything else about that additional appropriations. So can we ask that a phone call be made?
Yeah, we'll bring you back information on that.
Okay, excellent. So on page 40, we have salary compensation for the audit. That's on top of the amount that we pay to have the audit done every year? Or is that because we have additional requirements? It says, it's under professional services, it's the third one down.
We requested do basically a market study for the public works salaries. We feel like we're struggling to compete on a regional level, and so we asked
Okay.
funds to do an internal market study of our salaries and see if they're competitive.
Okay, I totally
No problem.
did not read that the way you just explained that. And in my mind, it was going back to our overall audit.
No, ma'am.
It's a market study. Thank
Yes, ma'am.
you. I'm sorry about that. Thanks.
Go here for.
On page 43, I've got a couple of economic development budget questions. And I think that we already went over this, but just reading it through, I wanted to make sure that I understood that we're not calling facade improvement grants anymore. We are switching that over to just downtown improvement grants, and that's going to have a wider reach.
So I think for funding for this year, this coming year, there definitely will be facade grants, but the Main Street Board has mentioned looking at additional grants that are traditionally done in downtowns. So like a building upfit grant, that kind of thing. So they will be looking at those as they form their committees and finalize their work plan in the next month. They'll be, examining those types of grants. So I think that's probably why it's all folded together.
Okay, and because...
And if they put one in place, they would put they would suggest the format of the grant for you to approve, but not the funding during this fiscal year. During this coming fiscal year.
So
it would still just be facade grants for this coming fiscal year, but they will be looking at adding, or potentially, they're just examining it at this point.
Okay. All right, so there will be facade grants. They're just hitting a different line item. Okay. And in the future, that's what that line item will hold possibly, are these other types of grants?
Possibly.
But
yeah,
also we could be putting some of that on the Main Street Board, because they come back to us and say we want these grants.
Oh, sure.
Because at some point they're going to be hopefully operating quite independently, if not totally independently, but at least somewhat.
Yeah, they would do the work that typically staff would do. So they'll evaluate and then just bring findings to you.
Okay. And then when we're talking about the Main Street coordinator, are we, like, even though this is a contracted position, are we giving them raises? Is this, because last year it was 62 and this year they want 65.
I did put a small increase in there for this year for that contract. It wasn't a request from the coordinator, but that we do not pay any benefits, or it's a straight hour contract. So we
pay per hour.
Yeah, we pay per hour for
Okay.
however many hours a month they operate, and they operate full-time pretty much.
Okay.
But there are vacations here and there, and so those are just backed out of the monthly total.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, how are those hours, how do we keep track of those hours?
So I get an itemized, detailed invoice that shows me the hours worked every day, the break for lunch, and the topics of work for that day. So it's very comprehensive.
Thank you.
It's an invoice, but everything is laid out for each day of that month, the previous month.
I guess, speaking. Okay, yeah, speaking in like head, so I can hear you when we're doing minutes, please.
When we look right under the Main Street Program Coordinator, there's the Main Street Program Conference and training requirements. That is for the Main Street Coordinator and then for the Main Street Board to do the training. Is that what that is?
There's conference attendance, which some years is less overall because it's a little closer, and then other years it's more expensive. So traditionally, in my experience, we just keep the same line item to cover that instead of fluctuating it up and down depending on where it is. But in addition to that, there are trainings all throughout the year. So there are economic development trainings, design trainings, organization trainings. They're mostly online now, which is much more convenient and cost effective. And so all of the board members are given the opportunity to attend trainings. They all can't attend them all, but that includes all of the potential trainings as well.
Awesome. And then there is a line item for Main Street promotions, and that was marketing. What you said in your presentation was it was for marketing events downtown.
So that 25,000 is actually a placeholder for all of the activities that will happen with all of the committees in the Main Street program. So that'll be economic vitality, design, promotions, and organization. It is labeled as promotions because that is the easiest one to understand what their activities would be, and probably the easiest one that they will populate and fill out their work plan for the year. But it will also cover, for instance, if there was beautification that happened downtown that the Main Street Board wanted to participate in, be a part of, or sponsor themselves, take on, that would come out of there. If there were workshop day where we brought in specialty architects and developers to show downtown building owners how they can turn their upstairs into apartments.
Okay.
That type of day would be covered by the Economic Vitality Group, so that would also come out of there. I think what you'll see in the future are a breakdown where you'll see, what's happening in each area, but they don't have a work plan approved as of the time of the budget.
Yeah.
So that would have been speculative, and so it's easier to keep it all in one lump sum for this year.
And so then when we're moving forward, like right now, the total operating budget for 690 is $283,000, but because you've run these programs in the past, and we were kind of sold a bill of goods that we're going to be transitioning some of the costs to the Main Street program as it grows and starts to be able to host events that turn a profit and whatnot. Now, do you estimate, though, that these costs will remain the same, and it's just that the events will start to pay for themselves, and that we can expect about the same amount each year that we're currently seeing, or do you anticipate that would go down for the Main Street program just itself?
Well, I'm going to step the number amount aside and go to the bare bones of how the programs operate. I think realistically, you're probably looking at primary funding unless there were grant funds that were gained through specific programming. But primary funding for the program for probably 5 years. It takes a while to get up and running, and then it takes very intentional effort and hard work to establish a fundraising mechanism that's going to continue and grow, that doesn't become all that the group does. So the coordinator and the group is nothing but fundraising the whole year to support itself, and it's kind of a cyclical thing. So you'll see a while before we get there. What I would expect is that you wouldn't have an event that is primarily a fundraiser unless it was bringing you in something.
Right.
So typically the board will figure out how they want to leverage that, or they'll work with the council here to determine how the funds are going to be allocated for the program, right? It is a partnership between a nonprofit and the town. It's always best if there is a sponsorship, hosting commitment from the town to continue the work. I've worked in the nonprofit-only organizations, and I would spend about 8 months of the year raising money to pay for myself, my rent, my benefits, and my staff. And then the rest of the year, if we got anything else done, we could kind of put that aside and see, how we could move on. But it wasn't very proactive, and it had been done that way for 20 years when I engaged with that group. So I think the partnership piece is very important. As for the actual number, I anticipate that the programming certainly could come from funds, from proceeds that the nonprofit has in the future. However, it's not typical to have a contract employee as your downtown coordinator. Typically, you have an employee. So if and when that contractor is not the downtown coordinator, you'll probably have to hire an employee. So that number's going to go up because of benefits and those things. So I just think we're going to see some fluctuation depending on programming, staffing. But to answer your question overall, eventually there will be some sharing of costs, and how that sharing happens is a partnership between the nonprofit board and the commissioners.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. On to page 53, where we have the
Thank you.
where we have the recreation cost recovery policy.
It's 53. Is it 53?
Yeah, it's on page 53. So I'm wondering if, is this in this packet? I mean, it's clearly outside of the budget message. Are we going to be asked to address the cost recovery policy at the same time that we are passing a budget message?
It's included because it relates to the proposed fee schedule, which is included in your budget ordinance, which starts on page 44.
Okay. And so, correct. All right, 44. I have a little bit of a concern with the fee schedule situation that we've got for Parks and rec, because what I've heard and what I've personally experienced is that if someone wants to use town property that doesn't have an associated fee schedule, it's not in the fee schedule, there seems to be a bit of scrambling to see how we can charge people to use every single patch of grass that we've got. And I think that when we come back to talk about this on the 3rd, I would ask that my fellow commissioners take a good look at what the fee schedule involves and what it's actually charging for, so that if someone wants to, say, practice on a piece of turf that we are not keeping up, that we're not racing to find a way to charge them, that, you know, there can be some kind of grace given, so that if a soccer team wants to have an extra practice and they don't need to have it on a maintained field, they can still use our park system without us saying, oh, this field over here, well, we're going to have to charge you something, even though it doesn't cost us anything. So I'm just going to encourage the board to take a look at that fee schedule so that we can come back and maybe say, yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to take every bit of blood out of every single stone that we can. I would prefer not to, but I'd at least like to have that discussion on the 3rd if we could.
I would like staff prepared, so can you be a little bit more specific as an example of how the fee schedule is or is not addressing the scenario that you put out?
I thought I just did, but that's okay. So say a soccer team wanted to use not the soccer field that we have, that we maintain on the former GSK property, but the one where the future fire department is going to be. You know, like that is something that like we don't actively maintain. Sometimes we use it for parking, sometimes we use it for nothing. But, you know, if someone would like to come forth and use it, do we make sure that we put it into the fee schedule so that people can't have pickup games? Or do we allow those kinds of usages to happen and just take on, you know, the responsibility that people are going to use our parks the way they're going to use our parks? So I'd just like to have a little bit of a conversation about that on the 3rd. And then I would like to see, moving forward, and this is something that we've discussed in the past, when we talk about how CIP projects are graded and scored by every department, we need to have some consistency, because I believe that having that will allow the board to get a much clearer understanding of what the prioritization is amongst the department heads. For example, we have Public Works that uses like 72, departmental priority for the Shepherd School Road, Old Bun, Proctor Street project. That is level A. But then we also have ones that say high, medium, and low priority. So are we going to assume that level A is the highest priority? Can we get some consistency across the board when we're putting it together, so that we know that, I mean, high, medium, and low works great for me. but I don't want to see like high, medium, and low along with numbers, along with letters, so that we have to make inferences that might not be correct.
That's fair.
On page 74, this is going to be a question for Chief Perry. And I promise I only have 32 more pages of questions, so we should be out of here tomorrow at some point. Talk to me a little bit about the key boxes and why it's the fire department that provides them. And I understand that there's got to be some kind of consistency across the board. You want them all to be the same design, be keyed the same way. But it seems like we are providing these to businesses, and I understand why. We need to be able to have the fire department insured access should they need to enter a building. But is there, like, just talk to me a little bit about the boxes.
Sure. So the key box system is required as part of the fire code and our local ordinance. So that's how it comes to rest within the fire department. When a new business or building opens up and they meet the criteria, for example, they've got a fire alarm system, they've got a sprinkler system, there's several elements within the criteria. That requires them to install the key box. Now, that being said, some businesses will voluntarily elect to install key boxes as well, just to keep from, quite honestly, to keep from their door getting tore up when somebody says, I thought I smelled smoke when I walked by this building or something, just to provide emergency access to the building. So the business or the building incurs the cost of purchasing the box and the cost of installing the box. The project that you see here, our current system, we've been using the same system since the early 90s. It uses obviously a key type system. There's a considerable risk at that. And if we were to misplace a key, honestly, as simple as dropping a key, whatever would cause us to lose a key, then at this point, every box we had would be in jeopardy if somebody could find that one. If they were to, our guys drop a key, that key is picked up, somebody realizes what they'd have access to pretty much a good part of the town. So what this project does is it moves from a key-based system to a key fob system, which is much more secure. Now you find the key fob, it's no longer active. So it upgrades us to a more modern technology than a key that has uncomfortably a high risk should a key be lost.
So this is going to replace all of the current key fobbed or the key boxed businesses in town, and then as more businesses come online, they will be required to purchase the key fobbed variety.
Pretty close. Yeah, really, really, really close. What this will do is it'll enable us to take the existing boxes and change just the locking mechanism. So we'll continue to use the exact same boxes that are in use today. We'll just change out just the key part. So very, very close to what you described. And then from now on, any future boxes that are purchased will be purchased with the key fob style lock cylinder in them.
At the cost of the business or the town of Zebulon?
At the cost of the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how many businesses are we talking about with the $65,000? How many businesses are?
It's about 160 boxes, and we're retrofitting about 160 boxes, and that is a portion of that, of the 65,000 that you see here. The remainder of that cost is the changes on our end. For example, the key fob has a dock inside the truck. So for me to get that key fob out, I have to enter a 4-digit code. So it secures the key fobs. So there is infrastructure on the backside in addition to the work with the exact boxes.
Okay.
Those are all one-time costs.
Okay.
Once we convert, we're good, so to speak.
Awesome, thank you. I just wasn't,
Sure.
I understood the lockbox process, but I just didn't understand exactly what this was talking about. So
Sure.
thank you so much for that. And now, let's turn to page 75. And then subsequently, page 76. I feel extremely uncomfortable having had one very short presentation on what seems to be some rather wild design choices and construction decisions to rehab or to renovate, pardon me, Town Hall, as well as the police department. While I am not questioning the fact that we will at some point need more space, how I understand the presentation that we were given is that there was going to be a whole lot of reconstruction in both of these buildings that would last for 2 years before a whole bunch more construction takes place. And that sits to the tune of $16 million. And I would like to remove this from the budget until we have a better understanding of what this is going to entail, the construction process, and a little bit more of, I guess, familiarity with the needs associated. I understand that things have gotten and will continue to get tight in the police department, and I think that there are needs that have to be addressed sooner rather than later. But this is an awful lot of money, and I don't feel extremely comfortable with how that money is going to be spent, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So I'm asking for thoughts from the board as far as, do you guys, I mean, if you guys want to proceed and in 5 years we will have spent, you know, the $16 million to redo this once and then redo it twice, take chambers from up here to down there to, I can't remember where it's going, where else it's going to be.
The purple dot to the blue dot.
Well, or can we remove this until we have a better understanding and then it can come out of general fund when we feel more comfortable? Or maybe it's just me that feels uncomfortable.
No, I'm okay. I feel the same way. So,
Clarify what is in the budget in front of you. So if you turn to page 67.
I'm sorry, 67?
67.
Because I just see the 1 million for FY 20, for 24, 25, it's 170,000, and then for the police station, it's another 110. But that's still $280,000 for the plan of action.
So give me the opportunity here. So page 67.
Well, I wasn't finished talking, but sure, go ahead.
No, go ahead. If you weren't
Go
done.
ahead. Nope,
If you
go
weren't
ahead.
done, finish.
The mic is yours, sir.
On page 67, there's 170,000 for the town hall reorganization, and there's 110,000 for the police reorganization. Neither of those funds have anything to do with the plans or the expansion that you've referenced in the 60 million. This talks about utilizing the space that we've got right now. So examples are, we've got some space in the southwest corner of this building. We also have some underutilized space in the finance department. We also have some vacant space where in both this building and the police department, where we're looking to utilize existing space that we've got by either making it inhabitable, the southwest corner being an example of that, or installing cubicles in the finance suite as an example to make that section more efficient. So the funds that you see in the FY25 budget are to utilize the existing space as we've got it. We realize that there's a lot more work to do before we talk about expansion or taking out walls. I wanted the board to realize that the money that is recommended in the FY25 is really about utilizing existing space by making it inhabitable or installing cubicle spaces. But it's no design for the big expansion. It's no walls being torn down or any offices being relocated.
While we're on that page, there is $820,000 for land acquisition for Fire Station 3. Are we going to keep our current fire station on as Fire Station 2 for right now? Or how is that? Did we acquire land that I missed?
No, we haven't. We haven't acquired land for Fire Station 2. The reason this is shown here is the board's decision to deny Zebulon South put us in a position where we now have to go and look and acquire property for Fire Station 3. So that's what that represents, but there has been no land acquisition for Fire Station 2.
And so this would be for land acquisition for Fire Station 2.
This is land acquisition for Fire Station 3. Fire Station 2 funds are already in the budget. It's just shown on this spreadsheet because at some point in time in the future, you're going to have to develop that property, okay? But the funds that's shown here is for the acquisition, the land acquisition for Fire Station 3, which is going to be in that vicinity where we were looking at, where the Zebulon South development was coming in.
Are we talking about not utilizing the 170 for space?
Correct. She's talking about taking it out in a recession. 170 and 110 as well for the police reorganization.
I just don't want us to get into a situation where if this is just for reorganization within town hall and within the police department, that's one thing. I'm not interested in starting to put money into developing that project that we were given the other night, where there's so much at play and we were given 15 minutes to try and understand and digest it all, because that has a very large price tag. And for me, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how it makes sense as presented. And so if this is just $280,000 to build cubicles and to make sure that different spaces are wired appropriately so that things can be used, that's one thing. As long as this is not us pursuing this renovation of town hall and the renovation of the police department yet.
And that's what this is. This is for the renovation. It is not for that plan. That plan is still for you to look at and try to understand.
It's for the reorganization.
Huh?
It's for the reorganization. So we're just using what we have and adding, and using the space that we have. We're not doing the,
Right.
we're not doing the
We're not
renovation.
No,
Yep,
reorganization,
yep.
and they need it.
So we're not talking about removing that? Or are we? Or was that discussion?
Till we get a better understanding, I mean, you completely understand what you need, what is staff for, correct me?
Well, I don't understand what staff needs as far as the renovation and or the reorganization and what that's going to entail and where that's going to be gone and how that's going to be done. If we put it in there, I would like to see some plans and ideas before we like pull the trigger and start.
The presentation, I was left a little bit confused.
Well,
What that money
I was
I'm not gonna sit
not
and say-
happy with that
I kind of
presentation.
thought we all were.
Well, that was,
in
that
last
was,
meeting.
that was way long range, and, you know,
I think we
that-
still
that-
understand that that was not a go.
Well,
we need more clarification on that as we go along.
Before we
But-
allocate-
But right now, we're talking about, what, the 170 and the 110?
So 280.
Yeah. Are we comfortable with
For me,
allocating that
Those funds.
and getting something back from the staff to see what that would look like?
I don't want the kitchen in the police department messed around with, since we just pretty much had it installed a couple years ago. Like, if we're doing a reorg, I want that kitchen to be left alone for right now so that it can continue to function as it is.
And it was not, it's not going to be.
I would like to see exactly what that $280,000 is going to be spent on, how it's going to be set up, what the layout is. For me, when the presentation was given, I was left completely confused what the final results will be. So allocating $280,000 and not knowing the end result, what we're going to get.
You can always put it on placeholder. We could say placeholder till we see what it looks like, or just take it out altogether.
We take it out and do a
That's-
budget
that's-
adjustment if we
that's
need to.
I wouldn't take it out. I'd leave it there. I mean, they can get us that information rather quickly, I think.
I think we can always do a budget adjustment.
We can do a budget adjustment.
Correct. It's an easy budget
But,
adjustment.
so let's put that as a topic for discussion for the June 3rd, like, let's add that one as well to June 3rd. On page 79, we have the CIP for the pedestrian bridge. And as was kind of discussed a little bit, there really are very few park users, and I think only 2 or 3 children on Barbie Street that would be utilizing a bridge instead of walking down to the end of to Barbie Street and then just walking down to Community Park. I'm not sure that that's $90,000 that we need to spend, and so I would like to put that up for discussion to remove that from the budget. On page 80, we have property acquisition for new parks. And I'm assuming that probably most of this is going to come from our Parks and Rec fees. But as we said earlier this year, this board does not feel comfortable just finding out that a park has been purchased and now we have a new park. I think that I'd like to know a little bit more, and so I would like to put a contingency that this $1.05 million is released only with a resolution that requires board approval prior to acquisition?
I think even discussions, you said acquisition, there are going to be discussions. I would
Well,
like
yeah,
to know,
I mean,
I would like to know
you want
prior
discussion,
to,
okay.
from the time frame from that money is even being obligated, I would like to know when it started, that conversation's been started, had, and then going from there.
Right, because there's probably going to be multiple properties that are
Correct.
being looked at the same time, and so I would like to have that as a discussion.
On June 3rd.
No,
sorry?
not on June 3rd, but when a group of properties are identified, I would like this board to be looped into the discussion prior to $1 million being spent on a parcel or several parcels of land. Is there agreement? Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
And then far as the 90,000 for the bridge, is speaking with the pastor there at that church there, we're going to have that conversation really to even begin that, think about repairing the bridge. Repairing the bridge and the church doesn't agree with us using that, it'll be useless anyway. So I've had that discussion or talking with the pastor, trying to figure out their thoughts on it. I think we as a town really have to have the discussion with that church as well.
Well, that can go back into general fund, and if that project
Sounds good.
comes back before us in a way where it looks like it's a go and that it's going to be beneficial. Okay. On page 81, there is $350,000 that is going to complete the green spine, which right now, I think that we need to get a better understanding of what that is, and perhaps a rescope, because we currently do not have a plan for a 5-county stadium. I imagine that we're going to have some fabulous things come through there. But without knowing that, do we move forward with the portions of construction with that green spine that's supposed to go from, what is it, Little River all the way to the stadium? And not that I don't want to have that greenway connections happen, but I also don't want to have it be a greenway to Terabithia, to no place. I mean, Terabithia is someplace, but not for this conversation. I would like to, also know that Wake County is on board with how we're going to redevelop it, so that we don't spend a whole bunch of money pushing that greenway out to someplace where it doesn't make sense anymore. And so I don't know what that means for the design and the permitting, which is what this $350,000 is for. It's for design and permitting. But do we ask for it to be rescoped until we get commitments from Wake County that it's going to be developed into something that's going to be meaningful for our community?
"Quote unquote" sustainability is going to be.
I'm sorry?
Okay, I understand what you're
saying. And if I'm wrong, then let's talk about it. But I feel like this was maybe put together with understandings and with information that maybe the board doesn't have yet. Like, if this is going to be, if the stadium is going to be redone into, who knows, a football arena, who knows, whatever it might be, then that would warrant us going forward with the greenway design and the permitting.
So just trying to gain understanding of what is happening with the Mudcat Stadium prior to allocating funds for the greenway.
Right, because
that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what would have hurt us just to pause that, take that out there?
I'm sorry?
What would have hurt to take those funds out until we find out more which way we're going to go?
And I don't know that we need to take them out. I'm just bringing it before us that, maybe we do need to reevaluate and rescope how that's going to look so that we're not creating a plan for something that is going to be dead in the water because we don't have Wake County on board and we're not creating something meaningful. And if we are creating something meaningful, then let's find out about it, and then let's go ahead and scope it.
I can agree.
Director Long, did you have some input?
Huh?
Sheila.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share, you have some leeway there. So you heard some discussion about the phase 2 of Beaver Dam Creek. You've got the downtown connector segment of the Greenway that you heard some information on. So if you didn't want to focus just on the green spine, you do have those other options. So we could still look at utilizing these funds to begin the design process of some of those greenway segments. The other thing to take into consideration, regardless of what happens with Five County Stadium, while we viewed that as an anchor, it doesn't change that we do still have like large housing development in that area that's already developed some public greenway as part of that development in Sydney Creek. And so the intent was, yes, it's gonna ultimately, that could be an anchor to Five County, but it's also an anchor to those residents and bringing them into the rest of the community via greenway as an alternate transportation mechanism.
And so we could go ahead, but just change the design and permitting to address some of those other greenway portions that we've talked about that are on the plan that clearly we're going to move forward with no matter what.
Absolutely, and I actually think Joe and I had this discussion before that piece of the CIP was done. So I believe that language has already been adjusted, and it just says, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe.
Could you tell me what page you're on?
I'm looking to make sure I'm looking in the right place. On page 68. Mm, 69, page 69, under park acquisition and development, and I'll touch on that one in just a second. Greenway design, it doesn't specifically say the green spine. So without making any changes, we already have that ability to have that transition. Okay. So we can work with y'all moving forward to just clarify a little bit more as we get more information, which of those 3 areas we really want to focus on to get started.
Yeah, before we start this whole greenway design process, will you please come back before us with like what the options are?
Yeah.
So that we can make sure that we're.
And we may find, I mean, depending on which section, it could be, I don't think we're going to get a ton done for $350,000 as far as huge sections in our designs.
Right.
It's going to depend on land acquisition and a bunch of other things. And so this was a placeholder for us to get started on which sections we were going to want to. And so we were going to need to come back to you with more information and discussion. So that's perfect. And then as far as park acquisition, you don't have to worry about like just all of a sudden there's a new park. We legally can't buy property without y'all having authorized it. So I want to give you that comfort.
I understand that concept, but I'm saying even discussions. This part I want to be more active when we start looking, when we start talking to landowners from the very beginning, where we're not getting somewhat where 2 years later, we've been working on a project 2 years and somebody say, we've been working on it 2 years, you guys denied or something like that. I want to make sure that from the very first conversation that the board is informed that we are now having discussions with Joe Smith at X, Y, and Z property to purchase for land acquisition for park.
Yeah, I think we can definitely put a process in place to make you comfortable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Or stand, be comfortable. I don't want to be the boss of how that happens. But when we went through work session 2, and we were talking about that there was the potential for the splash pad to be included in community park. Was that budgeted for that? Because it was for this fiscal year according to the work session document, and I'm just saying that I maybe didn't find it in here.
No, so y'all provided us that direction after?
No,
this
no,
was
I know,
developed?
but was
Okay.
the one for, pardon me, for community park? Because you had it listed as community park, and so is there
It's-
associated money to make that happen in here?
No.
Okay.
So it was not recommended for funding at any park for
Okay.
next year. But it was in that larger, your adopted Parks and Rec CIP, it was in that for, I don't have what year off the top of my head.
Right,
but
for,
in a future
in
year.
the master plan, you mean?
Well, no, it was in your adopted CIP as well, that large Excel spreadsheet that we went through.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And so that was in there, but it's not actually in our budget. And so if we wanted to move forward with Whitley Park as the splash pad location, then we would need to add the funding for that.
Yeah, and it
Okay.
would be funding, so just to clarify, just so there's no surprises, the amount identified for the splash pad at Community Park, there was design fees and other infrastructure that were distributed throughout the phasing in of Community Park. And so there's infrastructure that's already at Community Park that is not at Whitley. And there is the design, there was a bulk design amount that was taken into consideration. So the 400,000 that you saw was just specifically for the splash pad. It didn't necessarily take into account any of the support infrastructure and designs because that was in other lines. And so when we bring that information back to you on Monday, you won't see, it won't just be 400,000. It will also take into consideration like parking and a pump house and like UDO improvements that have to occur. So we just want to make sure that you were, when you're looking at that 400,000 was based specifically on Community Park. If it was placed there with all of the other design elements in play.
Can you send us the link to where that's located in the Parks and Rec master plan and those associated everythings? That would be useful for me to see all of that information prior to June 3rd, if possible. I mean, like, I'm assuming that you know that document the best out of anyone, and so it'll be easier for you to find it than for me to try and
Yeah, absolutely.
through it and understand what the different elements are that need to go into it that are currently in Community Park that are not in Whitley Park, et cetera.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Guess what? Now everyone else can ask their questions. Anyone?
Other questions, comments from the board?
You need a quick recess?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
If we're finished,
I'm done with all of my budget thoughts
any
and questions.
any more
Mayor?
budget questions? Commissioner Miles?
No, sir, not on my behalf.
Commissioner Clark?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
No, sir.
Okay. Manager Moore?
That concludes our presentation. The foreshadowing of the budget public hearing. So I'll present the board with the budget as was presented. I'll also incorporate all of the feedback that we have heard, so you have understanding of how, if you modify the budget that's been presented to you, what kind of implications that might have as far as general fund balance, or tax rate and things like that. So you'll see that Monday night, but no more presentations from us tonight on the budget.
So Monday night, I just want to make sure we'll be seeing the line item for Gill Street bathroom, correct?
Yeah, so exactly. I will show that as an example of one of the modifications that the board can consider on that line item specifically. You'll see it as a capital line item. It will be in the parks capital budget. We'll have a line item, and we'll be specific about calling out not only Gill Street, but the bathroom additions.
And we will get that prior to opening the public hearing then? Yeah?
Yeah, that will be part of my presentation to you before you get public comments.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, just by looking on here, that I understood what the flow was going to be.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, all right, wonderful. Thank you so much.
There are no other questions, comments from the board concerning the FY25 budget. I think our next is closed session. We'll go into closed session, and then we'll take a break after we go into closed session.
Can you take it before?
Take it before? All right, 10-minute recess.